when we're children and some adults, there are things that absolutely terrify us that lurk in the dark. The boogie monster, the monster under your bed, these things that, at least to my knowledge, are not real. So is a question of worthiness. Am I good enough? The doubt we have. To me, those things are so strong, they're more terrifying, petrifying, and tear me apart from the inside out than any monster I've ever seen. So I look at these things, this voice in my head, as more frightening than any monster that my child self could have ever imagined.
We all have monsters. They all lurk within us, and the truth is, we are those monsters. We're the ones who feed those monsters. So that's what we're going to be delving into. So what is your monster? What is the thing that holds you back from pursuing this creative journey? What are you feeding it? But then more importantly, how can we overcome our monsters within us?
So I talked about those monsters in our closets, under our beds. And they are every bit as fictitious as those monsters and questions of worthiness. Worthiness doesn't matter, you just do things, yet I know I've spent so much of my life looking in the mirror, having these whispers in my ear that are all driven by my own doubt and self-worth that make me feel incredibly, incredibly broken. It's like those scenes from Lord of the Rings. Hopefully, big enough movie. Some of you've probably heard of it.
It was okay.
It got a few views on the theater. I mean, I think it was there for like a week. Made a little bit of money. But with the Lord of the Rings, the character of Smeagol / Gollum had a lot of conversations with himself from like this completely destructive, hurtful beast that just basically pushed him to the brink of violence and self-harm and all these horrible things. And quite sadly, for me, when I talk about the monster with you that's inside me, I mention it as my Gollum because it's not that I'm worried about some gargantuan monster that's devouring me. It's this actually sickly looking creature that somehow still gets under my skin and makes me feel disgusting and worthless.
So, as you're talking, so we've talked about monsters before this video, and something that hadn't come up before was a reoccurring nightmare I had as a kid. Is I would have this dream, it would be in black and white, and I would awake in almost like this cart on like a train track. And so I'm going down this train track that's just going straight forward, all white around me. But then I start seeing symbols all along the walls or in the space, and a big ominous voice then begins asking me questions. And I have to answer the questions correctly. And if I answer them incorrectly, the train track would automatically veer off and I go down into a dark abyss. And I would wake up terrified in cold sweats. And now I'm thinking about that, it reminds me of my own monster that I'm still struggling with, is this idea of self-doubt. This thing that I don't know enough, I'm not good enough, that I can't do this thing that I'm meant to accomplish. And here, my child self was telling me this all along, and now it's almost like, Eureka! Like, I get it! But this is what these monsters do, is they lurk inside you, and they take you off the path. You're going towards the goal. You're heading the right way, but then this golem or this creature of self-doubt plagues you and takes you off the trail, and you start going in a direction you don't want to.
Oh man. I mean, I don't identify with that at all.
No.
I mean, most of us probably don't. And your dream, I'm kind of weirded out by it. And I'm also kind of weirded out and upset by the fact that you didn't write it down and try to sell it as a script. So maybe we'll edit this out. Joking aside, joking is one of my deflection techniques because even talking about these monsters is hard. Acknowledging that this thing that hurts you was created by you.
Oh.
I think it's funny that just literally today I took one of those predictive indexes that was sent my way via you about my personality, just by choices of words and things. And What I found interesting was the energy units were brought up. How actually I have a high level of energy, for those who know me, big surprise. But what's more telling is that I feel that any job I do requires twice as much energy as I have. So I have more energy than the average person, really able to get more things done, yet I feel like I have half of what I need. And that comes from that lack of worthiness, that lack of confidence, that self-doubt. Because what it makes me feel is I have to burn myself at both ends to tear myself apart just to participate, which is not sustainable.
Right. These monsters all, they're like any creature, right? They feast on something. And for me, this monster of self-doubt, it fed on that doubt. It fed on the lies I would tell myself that I'm not good enough to do this, I'm not smart enough, I don't have the skills. And this is something we have to begin starting to understand, is what is this monster feeding on? Because I'm literally keeping my monster alive. Each time that I'm trying to do art and I'm as being a butt about it and saying, oh, it's terrible, it's not good enough, I should never put it out there, I begin feeding that monster, which doesn't bring me closer to that goal, that purpose. It doesn't take me further along my escape plan. It diverts me from the path.
No, I mean, to me, you mentioned diversion from your path. To me, it's a wedge. If my dreams, my goals, my passions, my family, everything that I care about and love in this world, and I are in an embrace, it is the wedge that gets between us. And ultimately, because I'm afraid of hurting the people I care about in any of my pursuits and lack of worth, I'm more likely to want to push them away. For me, my monster makes me want to be alone because I feel that that's the best way, that I should quit. I mean, we've had conversations even on the path of doing things together, right, where things are going well, and I'm still like, are you happy with me?
Yeah.
Do you feel that this role is what you need from me? Because I want to be good enough for you, buddy. And while those things in some ways are good, you need checkpoints. You need to be accountable. You need to not just fall in love with what you're doing and feel like you're so good at it that you don't change. That there is a counter negative to the lack of worth. There's too much worth and a false sense of self. Not really my issue usually. It's usually more like I feel like I have a penny when I really have a dollar. So the truth of the matter is my monster feeds on any piece of Nick. Some people feed on just self-doubt. Mine feeds on everything. Mine is a buffet monster. Not a vegan. Not a vegetarian. I mean, it doesn't pick and choose what types of emotions and doubt and feelings. It's just like, it even feeds on my joy. It's like, oh, there's something that could make you happy. Why don't you think about the things about that thing that make you happy that could go wrong so that you don't enjoy the thing that makes you happy? And if you're still following, I'm going to simplify it saying, it makes everything good in my life turn to ash in my mouth. I can't taste the sweet of life because I fed and given in so much strength to this monster that everything that should be a blessing, by contrast, becomes, the more good things happen in my life, the more I'm scared about what's bad going to happen to it.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point, really about patterns. So you may be sitting there and you may either know what your monster is, or you know there is a monster, you just aren't quite sure what it is that it's feasting on, what it's doing. But the way you can begin identifying your monsters is it produces certain behaviors out of us. There's certain patterns. So you're talking about how it'll take those things that are joy and then just completely misconstrue it and get you to focus on the bad things that could happen with it. For me, it was the whole, with self-doubt, not being good enough, is I focus my time on learning. I gotta learn more things. I gotta do more tutorials. I gotta take classes. I gotta do all these things so that I somehow arrive to a place where I am good enough. But usually what happens is if I get so focused on the learning part, is I get tired of it because I'm not actually making any forward progress towards my goal, and then I quit. So start asking yourself and reflecting on what type of behaviors or patterns am I engaging in that are moving me away from that mountain? Because then you can start identifying those key points that, that's what my monster's eating. And that way you then know, how can I start starving my monster?
Right, and to learn that there are benefits from being able to weather and still survive this monster this long. You mentioned quitting. I have to deal with the fact that anytime these things are going wrong, even if I want to keep fighting, I feel like I want to give up because I don't feel good enough, just because maybe I just don't feel like I should be in the arena. And there's other things where I feel like quitting because it's the right thing to do. Like I get some kind of falling on my sword honorably because my family deserves a better life than me chasing my dreams and doing these things. To which my wife would call me dumb and tell me that she knows that for me to be happy is paramount to us being happy as a couple. But I forget about those things along the way because I'm so distracted by this monster in the mirror. And you get caught up in these things so much without realizing that worthiness, as we said in the beginning, is irrelevant. It doesn't matter because if you're not good enough, you can be good enough. I mean, it's kind of a, okay. Somebody says, well, you shouldn't do that. You're not good enough. Yeah, I'm going to do it anyway because I'll make sure I get good enough. And you're not really the person that should be judging this anyway. Judgy McJugger. Oh, I'm just going to keep going with that. Judgy McJudge your pants. Boom.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, who are we getting ourselves caught up in? Also, is it the other person's voice that we're imagining? Are we giving power to this monster to give voice to other people in our lives? I've done it with you and my wife and people who are close to me. My own relationship with even my parents. Sometimes I'm like, I can't do this, and I'm like, I've gotten so good at it that I'll actually have joking dialogues with them out loud. Yeah, and that's not even. He might be embellishing a little bit here, but I think you actually sigh more in real life when I actually do it. When I look at him and I'm like, well, Mason, Mason said this and Mason said that, and it's imaginary. Like I have another mirror version of everybody in my life, but instead of them being the supporting, loving people they are, instead they're like puppets for my monster. I mean, just kind of get right back here. Yeah, I was hoping he would do that. He wasn't prompted, so thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you.
I can improv.
Yeah, I mean,
it's fair.
The point being is we stop listening to reality.
Yeah.
We get caught up. We while so many people lack some level of creativity, we're amazingly creative with things that are negative in our lives. We will create stories that are worthy of best-selling novels to convince ourselves of how bad we are at everything. Because you think about this, if you strip down all that noise from that monster, and I just say, am I good enough or am I not? Doesn't matter. Do I want this or do I not?
That's an important thing to remember. Your monster's a liar. Don't trust it. It'll tell you and fill you with all kind of lies that are based in half-truths. And as we all know, half-truths are not true. And so we have to begin breaking down those lies and understanding that this monster is not working to our gain, it's working to our disadvantage. And so when we do begin understanding and breaking down those lies and seeing through the facade, we can cut through the poop and march forward. And that's the takeaway, is we all have monsters. And that's the question for you, is what is your monster? Put it out in the comments section. What is your burden? Maybe it's perfectionism. Perfectionism is a massive monster because what it is, it's a focus on what other people think about you. Instead of you just enjoying the work, enjoying the process, doing the very best you can now, and keep on going forward. Perfection is outward focus, and that is not to your gain because most of the time people don't care.
Also, if I can take a second, is anyone more alarmed not by their monster but the visual of cutting through poop?
Well, it's messy.
Yeah. I mean, wear some plastic wear, like gloves and maybe a face shield for eye protection because nobody wants pink eye. That's a monster of its own. Bacterial a little bit, maybe a lot.
So I'm going to take the reins back here.
Oh, I wasn't done. No.
Jokingly aside, you bring up a good point. Again, we talk about collaborators constantly. You need people to hold you accountable, who can give you a new perspective, that can tell you point blank that you're being dumb, you're an idiot, this is what your monster's telling you, this is a lie, you are good enough, you can do it. No, maybe you're not where you want to be, but you can get there. It's having someone who can be the voice of reason to help you get through that darkness, that cloud, and keep marching towards your goal.
No, those collaborators are invaluable. I wouldn't be here without them. Quite frankly, life is a messy thing. So it's best to surround yourself with as many people close to you that are willing to reach down into all that mess when you've cut all that poop and got it all over you.
Yep.
Because sometimes when you're trying to cut through it, you still fall down in a big old pile of it. And having someone who's willing to look you in the eyes, not judge you for it, wipe your face, help you up, clean you up, and get you back on track is precisely what you need because they Don't trust the monster. They are the antidote to whatever infection that monster is giving you. They are not the anchor that drags you back into the depths, no matter how much that monster tells you that you should separate yourself from them. Because for me, being this way is almost an addiction at this point. You trust that feeling of lack of worthiness.
Yep.
It almost becomes like a balm that makes you feel like, well, this is how I know I'm alive. And knowing that people, and in that, like any kind of addiction, you find any way to get it fed. And in my case, mine tells me to get rid of all those people who would help clean you up, dust you off, make sure that you're on the path again. And instead, it makes me want to keep diving further and further into an abyss. So, yes, surround yourself with collaborators. Find people who will hold you accountable on this monster diet. I mean, in some ways, that's what I'm thinking about is I've ingested way too much complex carbohydrate level Monster in my life. Not the beverage, in case Monster, even though it's not healthy, wants to sponsor us ever. We're talking about Monster.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Just kidding. I mean, we would take the money. No. But I'm kind of liking the idea of a monster diet. I think I need to go on because I've been a glutton for punishment for too long.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And even the best of us tend to fall into that trap. And when it comes to dealing with the monster, I don't think any of us need a cheat meal.
No.
So,
yeah.
In the end, if you're ready to end,
I am.
It never ends. The monster is a constant battle where we talk about. We're going to talk for like 13 more hours. But we appreciate if you stick around because at the end, there'll be a prize drawing.
Oh my goodness, no.
No, we don't have anything to give.
But the monster never goes away.
No,
It'll always be there. It's not about eradicating or killing your monster. It's about managing it.
Maybe channeling it a little too.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those things, and we say it all the time. Well, I say it all the time, make you roll your eyes probably at this point, that every strength is a weakness, every weakness is a strength. This thing that makes you feel like Bud all the time.
Yep.
Well, I mean, get that thing under control, put it on a leash, and let it pull you instead of push you down into the depths.
Yeah. Ed Catmull from Pixar talks about the beast. It's this insatiable hunger that demands, just growth, more progress. Unkempt, it devours the company. It devours your creativity, but trained, it pushes you forward. Same thing with my self-doubt. It's mostly rooted in a way where it pushes me to grow, to learn more, to challenge myself. That's good. But that self-doubt, when it's not in check, brings me down to the point where I don't even grow. I don't even do the work. So recognize what monster lives inside of you. What monster consumes you, and what does your monster eat?
Well, and with that, we are blessed enough to have each other and people in our lives that help us. And while the monster can be a conversation that has nothing to do with self-harm, it is a harming thing. And some of us go to further depths with it. So you're never fully alone. You'll have us. You'll have people hopefully you find in your life. But at the end, if you need help, you find it. Because I'll say this, and I'm getting used to saying this more. It's okay not to be okay. But it's not okay to stay there.
Yeah.
You have to find a way. And we care enough, much like other people, like that teacher who would scold you and you think everyone thinks they're mean, but it's because they expect more of you. I expect that everyone's life is worth living. Everyone's worth feeling. Everyone should strive for happiness, even if it feels impossible. And that's a big hypocrisy for me if I said it most times in my life because I didn't take the steps to find joy beyond fleeting happiness. So if my silly butt is going to make the effort, I'm going to be like, everyone else has to too. The truth of the matter is, you are not alone unless you choose to be. And you shouldn't choose to be. And there's nobody that's an exception for.
Yeah.
Because there's always resources, there's always people, even if they're not actively in your life. We live in a time when we're all here for you. Just got to find the right people to kind of mitigate what that monster can do to you.
So join our community. Be sure to leave a comment, like, subscribe.
Tell us about your monster.
Tell us about your monster. We're here to help. And
draw your monster if you can, even if it's crude. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's a visual thing. Like I said, mine's almost like Smeagolish and disgusting and lithe and gross. Much like I see myself. We haven't described what yours looks like.
No, I had to think about that one.
But we'll get back to you on that with him. sometime in the next 6 to 7 years when he gets confident in his drawing to provide it for us. But comment below. There is no such thing as a bad contribution here. I mean, keep it clean. I mean, if your monster is something not clean, it's probably not going to help the conversation. But show us what it is. Describe it. If you don't feel the art does it justice, give us a little narrative. I'm really curious to see what other people's monsters. I mean, talking about this, it never came up.
No.
We wanted to ask, but never imagined what would it be like somebody else draw their monster. And maybe if you're an artist like him, his might be a stick figure. Because that's all he can draw. Not true. But
Well,
yes,
that's interesting because self-doubt makes you think you're not good enough. So a stick figure would kind of, in the art realm would make sense.
unless it's a stylish stick figure. But yes, please comment below. Become part of the conversation. At this point, if you want to comment a lot of times, we probably would reply like sometime in the next 3 to 6 months. Or minutes, depending on how closely we're watching it.
We're active.
We're pretty active. I mean, we just want friends. No, but don't we all?
Yes.
Not really.
Oh my goodness.
The point of ridiculousness, it's dinner time here in our household. Casa de BigBad. And no, don't let your monsters master you, master them. And with that, share them. Let's shed some light on them, because just like those ones hiding under your bed or in your closet, all it takes is a light coming on or a flashlight at them, and they're gone mysteriously. It's weird how that works, because they're not really real. They're just you. They're just me.